Chapter 15. Oliver stood at the town gates, petrified. Petrified, that means very, very scared. His heart was racing, his body trembling. The monster had arrived. It stood on two stumpy legs, and a row of spouts ran along its backs from which smoke constantly puffed out. Okay, let's see the monster photo. This is the monster. So he has two stumpy legs, very short legs, and he has a row of stouts. These are stouts, okay, from which black smoke are puffed out. Okay. It had no arms, no mouth, and translucent grey skin. But what really stood out was its face. Two giant flat nostrils were carved into its face from its forehead to its chin. They were so big that Oliver almost could not see its eyes. So let's look at. So he has two enormous nostrils, okay, and then his eyes can barely be seen. The hideous, that means very ugly, monster stood just a distance away from Oliver. "Return to your planet or face my wrath." Face my wrath, that means face my anger, Oliver shouted through his fishbowl helmet, as boldly as he could pretend to be. The hideous monster snorted arrogantly. Arrogant, that means like proudly, very proud. It scratched its feet against the ground before lumbering. Lumbering, that means moving very slowly and heavily. Ferociously, that means fiercely, towards Oliver. Oliver whipped out his weapon, aimed for the monster's eyes, and shot his vice. The monster swatted it away with his head like it was just a mosquito. Oliver quickly retracted his vice for a second shot, but it was too late. The monster now stood over him. Bending its head down, the monster pointed its nostrils at Oliver, flared them open, so opened its nostrils, and with a heave of its massive chest, and heave, okay, sucked in all the air like a giant vacuum cleaner. Immediately, Oliver was plucked off the ground. He clung onto the town gate with all his might until the mini hurricane finally subsided. So he clung to a gate when the monster sucked in all the air, okay? And he clung onto the gate until the mini hurricane that the monster, because the monster sucked in air, so there was like a mini hurricane, okay? It finally died down, subsided, that means died down, okay? So this is the monster, and this is Oliver and his fish tank head. But the monster wasn't done. Bending forward, it churned the air inside its chest. Churn, that means zzz, okay? Then in one giant explosion, it blasted all the air from its chest through its spout. Windows shattered and leaves tore off from its trees in a deafening, that means very loud sonic boom as smoke rocketed out from the monster's back in all directions. The explosion ripped the town gates off its hinges and slammed Oliver to the ground, bouncing him around like a ping ball until he crashed into a wall. The monster roared in triumph again, victory, okay, triumph. With a loud snort, it continued its advance. It continued to move forward through the shattered gates. "Is that all you've got, you ugly slop?" Oliver shouted defiantly. His hands and legs were bleeding now, his left eye was swollen, and his knees were still shaking from the pain. Yet slowly but surely, Oliver stood up. The monster fumed, very angry. Shaking its head in frustration, it stomped towards Oliver with all the speed its bulky leg could muster. Okay? All the speed that it could gather. Muster means gather. Okay? Oliver hobbled away, barely able to maintain his balance as the ground beneath him trembled. Gritting his teeth, Oliver half skipped and half ran towards a nature reserve nearby, seeking refuge, that means seeking shelter or seeking protection inside its thick forest. The monster continued to chase after him. Bashing its way through the thick forest, it yelped and grunted as thick branches slapped against its face and scratched across it. Suddenly, Oliver ran towards a tree and released a rope that was tied to it. "Take that!" he shouted triumphantly. A huge net fell from above, blanketing the monster completely. The monster tried to shake itself free from the net, but it only entangled itself more. Snagging its legs against the net, the monster stumbled forward as it tried to regain its balance before slamming to the ground with a massive thud. It groaned from the seismic headache. Okay? Seismic is like an earthquake kind of thing. Okay? The monster tried to pick itself up, but the net clung firmly to its body. It then tried to tear the net apart, but the more it tried to break free, the stronger the net resisted. "It's useless," Oliver remarked proudly. "I made that net from Moroccan silk. You can't break free." As if understanding what Oliver said, the monster collapsed onto the ground, panting heavily from exhaustion. Very tired. "Serves you right for invading my planet," Oliver cried, before turning around and making his way towards the bunkers. But as he leaped away, Oliver thought he heard a familiar sound coming from behind. Snapping his head backwards, he was shocked to discover the monster's nostrils flaring open again. So the monster has opened its nostrils again. I think going to suck the air again. Immediately, Oliver shot his vise and anchored himself to the tree branch. Anchored, then locked himself to the tree branch. Okay, closing his eyes as he braced. That means he prepared himself for what came next. The monster breathed in like never before. Its nostrils grew as large that they shoved its eyes down to its neck. Its chest expanded so much that even the net that once grabbed it so tightly was tearing apart. Oh dear. Oliver's body tossed and turned in the air like a kite caught in a typhoon. He tried to hold on to his vise, but the monster's hurricane force was too strong. Inch by inch, the hand grip, he was gripping his vise, right? Hand grip on his vise slipped further away from his hands until finally he lost his grip and dived straight into the monster's nostrils.